Corruption by P.K. Armstrong. Chapter 13. Roland stopped short when his eyes met Angel's across the room. He looked around the waiting room and then looked back at Angel as she rose to meet him. Angel slipped the blue folder back into her messenger bag. "Hey, Christopher." Christopher stopped again at her use of his first name. She very rarely called him Christopher in public, always Roland. It was one of the reasons he liked spending time with her in private. He liked the way she said his name. "Angel?" He looked around, puzzled. "Are you here with Kincaid?" Angel was a little wary, considering how Roland felt about Kincaid, but she kept her face blank and her voice without emotion. "I was the one that found him." Roland moved closer to her and grasped her arm. "Are you okay? You're not hurt?" he asked, his voice tinged with worry. "No, no. By the time I found him, the perpetrator was long gone." She looked down at her white shirt. "This is Kincaid's blood." Before Roland could reply, Catherine returned. "He's going to be okay," she said, relieved. Roland dropped Angel's arm. Angel made introductions, and Catherine continued. "He has a concussion. The cut on his head took 23 stitches. He has 2 broken fingers and 2 cracked ribs. They want to admit him because his blood pressure is too high." "Were you there when it happened?" "No, I walked up to see her leaning over him trying to stop the blood. There was so much blood." She gulped, trying to calm herself again, and turned to Angel. "Thank you for helping him. He wanted to make sure you understood." She stopped, remembered Roland was there, and changed her mind. "He was thankful," she finished lamely. Detective Mindy Bashinda came through the automatic doors. "Roland, can I have a minute?" Roland looked from Catherine to Angel. "Don't go anywhere. We need to get your statements." And he moved to speak with the detective. "I'm sorry. I realized I don't know what was in the file or even if the police should know about it," Catherine whispered to Angel. "I'm not sure. I didn't get a good look at everything. I will go through it. Give me your number. I will text you if I need you to do anything for Clark." Angel decided she would present it as helping Clark. She didn't think she would help her if she thought what she was going to do would get Clark in trouble. Angel handed Catherine her phone and she entered the number. They looked up to see Roland and Detective Bashinda coming towards them. He nodded at Angel. "This is Detective Bashinda. She's going to take your statements. I'm going to speak with the doctors and Clark Kincaid if I can." "He's in really bad shape, Detective," Catherine argued. "I understand. That is why I'm going to speak with the doctors first. But I need to get enough fresh information while I can." He nodded at Detective Bashinda and strode from the waiting area. Angel watched him go and then turned to the detective. "Which of us do you want first?" "I'll take Miss Catherine here, just in case they need her to get back to Mr. Kincaid," Detective Bashinda replied. Catherine nodded her acceptance, and they left the ER. Angel sat watching the comings and goings of the medical staff, the door opening and closing, and family members rushing in to be with loved ones. She heard the wail of sirens and the consistent bellow of the intercom, and thought about when she was rushed in last year after entering a suspect's apartment who was holding Violet. Brandy, the woman claiming to be Violet's mother, had been hiding in the apartment and had brutally assaulted Angel. She wondered if this was what it was like for her parents when they had waited for her. If she and Roland's relationship worked out, then this is where they would bring him if he was injured on the job. Roland, Roland, she thought. What was going on? What was that list, and why was his name on it? She couldn't remember the names on the list, but one thing she knew for sure. If it was in a bag with a severed finger, it was not good. Christopher Roland didn't come out with much after talking to a woozy Clark Kincaid. Head injuries can make you that way, especially concussions. He spoke with him briefly, and when he asked him if he knew who had attacked him, he had replied, "Not exactly." And then when he asked him did he know why, he tried to grin and said, "Ask your girlfriend," and promptly closed his eyes. Christopher frowned. He needed to speak to Angel. He didn't care if he had to shake it out of her. She was going to have to tell him what she knew. He turned toward the waiting room and barreled through the door. There was no point. She was gone. Angel finished with Detective Bashinda and quickly made her way out of the hospital. She called Sammy's and requested a car to pick her up at the employee parking lot of the hospital and take her back to her car. When he arrived, he looked at her with alarm when he saw the blood. "It's okay," she soothed. "It's not mine, and it's dry." She met Sammy when she was on patrol. He was a car thief and had been since he was 13. When he was 19, he was trying to turn his life around. He stopped thieving and got a job at a local pharmacy. He was shot point blank range in the chest by a junkie. Angel was the first officer on the scene and stayed with him until paramedics arrived, holding his hand. When he got out, Jerry Dale had done a ring around all the cops involved in his anger management program, his fishing club, and at a few retirement parties, and raised enough funds to help Sammy start a car service. That was years ago, and Sammy managed to expand his small fleet to 5 cars and a limousine. Somehow, when Angel needed a ride, it was always Sammy who picked her up. After a few side glances, he left Angel to herself as they made their way through town, back to Clark Kincaid's office. She watched the trees begin to fade into the shadows as early evening began to set in. She had purposely left the hospital so she would not run into Roland. She was nervous. Angel was losing focus. She knew what she found was significant, but she had no context. They pulled up to her car, which, surprisingly, was without a parking ticket, and she tried to tip Sammy. He waved her away with a grin. "Any time, detective," and he drove away. She got in her car and headed home, changed her mind, and headed toward her parents' home. Clark Kincaid kept that list for a reason. While she had no evidence that he was a crook, she wouldn't put it past him to know a dirty cop or two. She needed her dad's help to go through the list. She touched her bag with a blue file folder tucked away to reassure herself, and drove on as the sky began to darken and the lights began to illuminate the streets. Roland got in his car and reached for his cell phone. He needed to find Angel. He was about to dial her number when his phone rang, displaying Jerry Dale. Roland answered. "Roland, Roland, Jerry Dale here. I need to talk with you about something. Can you come by the house?" Roland hesitated. He needed to get to Angel. Jerry Dale heard the hesitation. "I wouldn't ask, but it's really important." "I'm on my way."